This is Joe Biden. On March 28, 2022, he held a press conference announcing his budget proposals for fiscal year 2023.
You've heard me say this before over the years. My dad had an expression. He said, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget. I'll tell you what you value. Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value."
Yes, Joe. Please give us more quotes from your dad, Joseph R. Biden Sr., the world-famous used car salesman from Claymont, Delaware.
The budget I'm releasing today sends a clear message to the American people that what we value.
Yeah, nobody cares. What was on everyone's minds, however, was the fact that Joe Biden went to Europe to boost his profile on the world stage. But in the process, he made numerous outrageous statements, including saying that there was a possibility that the US and NATO would use chemical weapons against Russia.
If chemical weapons were used in Ukraine, would that trigger a military response from NATO?
It would trigger a response in kind.
Then he called for Putin to be removed from power in Russia.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
So again, the press, and Americans for that matter, couldn't care less about Biden's policy wish list or quotes attributed to his supposedly corrupt father. They wanted to ask Biden about the potential ramifications of his Euro blunders.
Do you believe what you said, that Putin can't remain in power? Or do you now regret saying that because your government has been trying to walk that back? Did your words complicate matters?
Number one, I'm not walking anything back. The fact of the matter is I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward the way Putin is dealing in the actions of this man. Just brutality of it. Half the children in Ukraine. I just come from being with those families.
Okay, first of all, this is highly dubious, because while meeting with refugees in Poland, Biden seemed less concerned about their personal situations and more about being able to compliment a woman's eyes.
I love you. I love you. How do you say in Ukrainian, who do you owe those beautiful eyes?
Did you see it? Did you see all the moral outrage? Because all I saw was Biden being a creep to a woman who had to flee her homeland. Second of all, when Biden gave a press conference at NATO, he was asked the following.
Do you think that getting a first-hand look at the effects of this war on these millions of Ukrainians who have fled their country could change the way that you might respond?
I don't think so, because I've been to many, many war zones. I've been in refugee camps. I've been in war zones for the last 15 years, and it's devastating.
So for clarity, Biden is like, I'm a tough man who can't be affected by these things. I've seen it all. But then Biden claims that he was affected by it.
I just come from being with those families. But I want to make it clear, I wasn't then, nor am I now, articulating a policy change. I was expressing the moral outrage that I feel, and I make no apologies for it.
Personal feelings, sir.
Personal feelings? My personal feelings.
So the excuse here is that Biden, like all great presidents before him, let his emotions get the better of him, which is exactly what you want from your commander-in-chief. Anyway, during the press conference, photographer Oliver Contreras shot this close-up image of Biden's notes titled Tough Putin Q&A Talking Points. Let's watch as he refers to those notes while addressing White House reporters.
When you say that you're not walking anything back, you do feel that Vladimir Putin should be removed from power? Is that what you're saying?
No, I was expressing just what I said. I was expressing the moral outrage I felt towards this man. I wasn't articulating a policy change.
So he's using a cheat sheet to answer very simple questions, which is concerning on its own. But it also suggests that these talking points are what members of his administration want him to say. But then gets ahead of himself and answers a question that hasn't been asked yet.
That other governments have suggested that this is a problem, I'm escalating things. No. And has it weakened NATO? No, it hadn't. NATO has never, ever, 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 ever been as strong as it is today. Never.
The more Joe Biden makes that claim, the less I believe it. So later in the press conference, Peter Doocy from Fox News pressed Biden on the blunders that he made during his European trip.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
What's getting walked back? He has fucking cue cards full of walkbacks.
It sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia, and we know...
None of the three occurred.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
So now Biden is claiming that those three things that happened, things that we saw with our own eyes and heard with our own ears, didn't happen. That's called gaslighting.
Mr. President?
You interpret the language that way. I was talking to the troops. We're talking about helping train the troops that are the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. That's what the context. I sat there with those guys for a couple hours. That's what we talked about.
So for clarity, Joe Biden said he was talking to the US military about training Ukrainian troops in Poland. But that's not remotely what he said.
And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people stand in the middle of front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground.
There, Biden is telling troops what they are going to see when they are in Ukraine, not Poland. On top of that, he's suggesting that some of those troops have already been there to see what has been happening due to the war. And that would be weird, considering 1 week prior, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the following.
We do not have U.S. troops currently training Ukrainians. We do not have U.S. troops on the territory of Ukraine.
So, as per usual, Joe Biden said a thing that contradicted the official White House stance and complicated matters even more. Womp womp. So General Todd Waters, Commander U.S. European Command and Supreme Allied Commander Europe, was asked about it by Senator Tom Cotton.
The president said while he was in Europe that we are training Ukrainian forces in Poland. Is that accurate?
At this time, is that the time setting of the statement?
That's what the president said. Jake Sullivan said we are not. I'm just trying to figure out if we are or are not.
I do not believe that we are in the process of currently training military forces from Ukraine and Poland. There are liaisons that are there that are being given advice, and that's different than I think you're referring to with respect to training.
Gee, thanks for clearing that up, General. But actually, it turns out that we are in fact training Ukrainian forces in Poland. Here's Fox News' Jackie Heinrich.
We have new details tonight on the kind of training the U.S. military is providing to Ukrainian troops in Poland. It was first referenced by the president himself earlier this week. Sources tell Fox the U.S. military is giving verbal instruction on how to use some of the weapons that are coming into Ukraine, like Javelin, Stingers, and grenade launchers, but it does not include any drills, so it falls short of formal training.
Oh, so it's not formal training, it's just training. Got it. Anyway, back to Peter Doocy, who pressed Biden about his remark about what his response would be to Russia if they used a chemical weapon.
And when you said a chemical weapon use by Russia would trigger a response in kind.
It will trigger a significant response.
What does that mean?
I'm not going to tell you. Why would I tell you? You got to be silly.
The world wants to know?
The world wants to know a lot of things. I'm not telling them what the response would be. Then Russia knows the response.
Oh, I see. It's a secret. Shh. You wouldn't want Vladimir Putin to know what the consequences of using chemical weapons would be. Don't give that away. But the truth of the matter is, unless Putin launches a chemical weapons attack on a NATO country, Biden's not going to do shit about it. Anyway, on the subject of Biden having called for Putin's removal from power,
complicate the diplomacy of this moment.
No, I don't think it does. You know, the fact is that we're in a situation where
81 million votes, guys. But of course, it does complicate the moment, because Putin has been claiming for years that the United States wants regime change in Russia. And now he has the leader of the free world saying it in 4K. So, well done, Mr. Resident.
Sorry, can you say yes or no Mr. President, whether or not you would be willing to meet with President Putin
It depends on what he wants to talk about.
Yeah, I'd say it's unlikely that Putin's going to request or agree to meet with the world leader who called him a butcher and a war criminal, and then proclaimed that he should be ousted from power. In other words, Biden is talking about attending a party that he'll likely never be invited to. Anyway, that's it for now. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.